On Christmas Eve of 2011, when I was only 13 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer. The doctors told me I had a fist-sized tumor growing in my leg, eating away at the bones in my knee. A million questions flashed through my mind as I felt my whole world come to a stop. The questions started off innocent. Am I going to miss school? Am I going to be able to finish my 7th grade basketball season? But as the reality of the situation began to set in, the questions started to evolve. Am I going to have to go through chemo? Am I going to lose my leg? Am I going to live to see my 14th birthday? Perhaps the question that I wondered most was, why me? Of course, there was no answer to this. There was no way to make sense of what was happening to me. Looking back, though, I can tell you one thing for sure, and that's that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. These words were first spoken by Steve Jobs at his 2005 Stanford commencement speech. And he went on to add that you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. This cancer diagnosis was the first of many dots that would soon enter my life, each leaving me with more and more uncertainties, more questions, and no answers. I started chemo right away. I remember the nurses coming in, covered head to toe in protective equipment to protect them from the bag of toxic chemicals that they were hooking up to pump through my blood. My weight plummeted as my appetite, energy, and hair all disappeared. Every week I sat and watched, powerless, as my healthy, athletic body was replaced by a weak and fragile shell. After a few sessions of chemo, it was time to meet with a surgeon to discuss what we were going to do about the tumor growing in my leg. And he basically laid out two options for me. The first option was what he called limb salvage, in which he would pick apart the tumor and any damaged areas of bone and replace my knee with an artificial joint. I'd be able to keep my leg and have just a few scars to show for it. The second option was amputation. Seems like a pretty easy decision, right? This may sound crazy to some of you, but I didn't really want to have my leg cut off, so initially that was what I went with. Well, the doctor talked a bit more about what limb salvage would look like, and he talked about how the replacement joint would be extremely fragile, rendering a return to sports impossible. Even certain activities like biking or going in the ocean could pose a risk of shattering my knee. He gave me a few weeks to decide. The decision still seemed easy, but as I thought about it more and more, it became clear to me that limb salvage just wasn't going to be compatible with the lifestyle that I wanted to live. I wanted to be active. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be out there on the field, on the court with my friends, doing what I loved. And so, as a 7th grader, I made the incredibly difficult decision to have my leg amputated. I remember feeling terrified as I was wheeled back into the operating room, overwhelmed by the uncertainties of what I was doing. Was my desire to play sports again really worth having my leg cut off? Was I making a mistake? Again, so many questions, so many uncertainties, and no answers. The treatment cycle started back up again after surgery. It felt like I lived at the hospital. The identities that I held prior to my cancer diagnosis ceased to exist. I was no longer a student or an athlete or a kid. I was a patient, nothing more. When it was all said and done, I had completed 21 sessions of chemotherapy spanning over the course of 2 years. And it was in these 200 days and nights in the hospital that I learned some extremely valuable lessons that can't be learned in a textbook. I learned how vulnerable it is to have your hopes and dreams put on hold, to have your health and autonomy stripped from you. Life in the hospital was hard. I could have given up, and I don't think anyone would have blamed me. I didn't give up, though. No, instead, I made the active choice to try to reclaim my life. I carried a new perspective, one built on growth and potential. I stopped worrying about the things that I couldn't control and instead began focusing on the things that I could control. I spent early mornings and late nights studying with the hopes of catching up with my peers. I put in countless hours in physical therapy and in the weight room, working towards my goal of one day playing sports again. Academically, I returned to school as a freshman with a sixth grade education after missing the past 2 years for treatment. Physically, I was weak and tired as I fought to regain my strength. Socially, I was out of touch, having missed all the big events and drama that middle school brings. I even missed one of the biggest fights in school history, and nobody thought to record it for Sam. But as I got a bit more comfortable with my leg, I decided to try out track and field, and I fell in love with high jump. I started working with a local coach, and within a year had qualified for Paralympic trials. To my surprise, my performance at trials was enough to qualify me for world championships that would be taking place in Doha, Qatar. And I was only 16 years old at the time, competing in a field of 20-something-year-olds, all taller, stronger, more experienced than me. And to top it all off, I was seated in last place. So naturally, I came in with the ambitious goal to go and beat just one person. Just don't get last place. Well, the event started, and I came in at starting height, and I cleared it. And then I cleared the next height after that, and the next height after that, and soon realized that I was jumping higher than ever. Eventually, we reached a point where only 3 of us remained in the competition. Great. Not only had I evaded the dreaded last place position, I was now guaranteed a medal. The 3 of us went back and forth for some time until we reached a point where if I cleared the next bar, I would take home the gold medal. So I walked up to my starting spot. I took a few deep breaths. I pictured what I had to do, and I started running towards the bar. When I landed on the mat and I looked back up, I could see that the bar was still standing. I was a world champion. I carried a new confidence. I returned home with a new identity. I no longer saw myself as a damaged remnant of my former self, but rather as a fighter, strong and capable enough to overcome anything. This newfound confidence that I gained through track and field carried other facets of my life to new heights. I would soon graduate from high school in the top of my class and go on to study at the University of Notre Dame. And it was there where I started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life that I felt this calling to a career in medicine where I'd have the opportunity to take the lessons that I learned as a patient and use them to give back to others who might be experiencing the same challenges that I too once faced. It was this passion to provide the same quality of care that brought me out of my darkest days that fueled me to endure the academic pressures that any pre-med student faces. It was this passion that allowed me to gain admission to the nation's top medical schools, including Harvard, Yale, Stanford, and Michigan. Well, tonight I'm standing in front of you as a first-year medical student right here at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. And I'm in my 8th year on the Paralympic track and field team, during which I've won 3 world championship titles, set a new world record, competed as the first Division I amputee high jumper, and most recently, won a gold medal at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games. So when I think about the position that I'm in today, I can't help but remember the scared 13-year-old who thought his life was over. The days and nights spent wondering, why me? The days and nights when I didn't think the dots in my life could ever connect. That's why I feel incredibly fortunate to have the opportunity to stand here tonight and to look back and connect those dots, to reflect on those hard times, the setbacks, the uncertainties, and see now how each and every one of them was crucial in getting me to where I am today. I look back on the cancer diagnosis, on the nights in the ICU, the times when I didn't know if I'd live another week, and I see now how those brushes with death gave me a new perspective on life and instilled a sense of urgency and purpose into everything I do. I look back on the difficult decision to have my leg amputated, and I see now how that decision gave me the strength to live the life that I wanted, not the life that was easiest. I look back on the early mornings and late nights spent studying with the hopes of catching up with my peers, and I see now how that work ethic is what prepared me for the academic challenges that I'd face in college and in med school. And I look back on the blood, sweat, and tears poured into relearning how to walk. And I see now how walking is what led to running, and running is what led to jumping. It was these moments of great adversity, great pain, that gave me the tools that I needed to achieve the greatest successes in my life. So as you go forth in your own lives, and you experience your own challenges, your own obstacles, your own dots, and you find yourself asking, why me? I hope that you'll remember my story. I hope that you'll remember that the process of connecting the dots is not a passive one. It's not a matter of sitting back and waiting for good things to start happening to you. No, connecting the dots is about perseverance. It's about pushing through the obstacles put in front of you and treating these obstacles as opportunities to learn, to grow. Connecting the dots is about embracing times of uncertainty, not running from them. You know, looking back at these pictures of me as a kid, it's pretty clear to me now that the universe was trying to tell me, Sam, buddy, don't get too attached to that leg. I couldn't have known that at the time, because you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. Thank you.